welcome from Matt and Michael. Tá fáilte roimh go baiatre. Behind me this week is Newtown Bridge, Newtown. It's also known as St. Peter's Bridge. It has 5 arches. I remember back in the 70s there was a suggestion that it should be modified and widened to accommodate more traffic. But many locals objected and traffic lights were put in instead. The bridge is thought to date at least from the 15th century. And there's the River Boyne, flowing from Trinity Well near Carbery, County Kildare, where it rises, towards Navan, Slane, Drogheda and into the Irish Sea. One of Matt's songs this week is a well-known river song. And we'll end with a tune from Vladimir about another river, obviously much different to the Boyne, since it seems to have water of a very strange colour, and it flows through many European countries and capitals. Matt also has a story for us triggered by the death of an old friend, and I have a poem from Cornwall and a brain scan poem. We'll start with Matt out in the garden.
Hello friends. Today is another day in spring. Maybe it's the spring. Whatever it is that's inspiring me to sing it all, but to sing this song particularly. The garden where the praties grow. It could be my great love for the spuds. I do like my potatoes. It could be a throwback to a memory of years gone by when at a time in my own life I tilled an acre of potatoes for a couple of years. So I know a lot about potatoes and I love potatoes. And a fella called Johnny Patterson, who was born on Clare all those years ago in the 1800s, one of the songs he wrote was this one, The Garden Where the Praties Grow. And another reason is it was sung by John McCormick. So, you know, it has its own merit. And I hope you all join in and sing. If you know the chorus, as I'm sure you do. Have you ever been in love, me boys, or have you felt the pain? I'd sooner be in jail myself than be in love again. For the girl I loved was beautiful, I'll have you all to know. And I met her in the garden where the praties grow. She was just the sort of creature, boys, that nature did intend to walk right through the world, me boys, without the Grecian bend. Nor did she wear a chignon, I'd have you all to know. And I met her in the garden where the praties grow. Said, I'm a pretty Kathleen, I'm tired of single life, and if you've no objection, sure I'll make you my sweet wife. She answered me quite modestly and curtsied very low. Well, you're welcome to the garden where the praties grow. She was just the sort of creature, boys, that nature did intend to walk right through the world, me boys, without the Grecian bend. Now did she wear a chignon, I'd have you all to know. And I met her in the garden where the praties grow. Said, I'm a pretty colleen, I hope that you'll agree. She wasn't like them city girls who'd say you're making free. She said, I'll ask me parents and tomorrow I'll let you know if you'll meet me in the garden where the praties grow. She was just the sort of creature, boys, that nature did intend to walk right through the world, me boys, without the Grecian bend. Now did she wear a chignon, I'd have you all to know. And I met her in the garden where the praties grow. Though the parents they consented and were blessed with children 3, 2 girls just like the mommy and a boy, the image of me. And now we're going to raise them up the way they ought to go, out digging in the garden where the pretties grow. She was just the sort of creature, boys, that nature did intend to walk right through the world, me boys, without the Grecian bend. Nor did she wear a chignon, I'd have you all to know. And I met her in the garden where the pretties grow.
Here's another poem by the Cornish poet Charles Causley. This one is called Eden Rock, and it's about his parents. Eden Rock. They are waiting for me somewhere beyond Eden Rock. My father, 25, in the same suit of genuine Irish tweed. His terrier Jack, still 2 years old and trembling at his feet. My mother, 23, in a sprigged dress drawn at the waist, ribbon in her straw hat, has spread the stiff white cloth over the grass. Her hair, the colour of wheat, takes on the light. She pours tea from a thermos, the milk straight from an old HP sauce bottle, a screw of paper for a cork, slowly sets out the same 3 plates, the tin cups painted blue. The sky whitens as if lit by 3 suns. My mother shades her eyes and looks my way over the drifted stream. My father spins a stone along the water. Leisurely, they beckon to me from the other bank. I hear them call, "See where the stream path is. Crossing is not as hard as you might think." I had not thought that it would be like this.
There is not in the wide world a valley so sweet as the vale in whose bosom the bright waters meet. Oh, the last rays of feeling and life must depart ere the bloom of that valley shall fade from my heart, ere the bloom of that valley shall fade from my heart. Yet it was not that nature had shed o'er the scene our purest of crystal and brightest of green. 'Twas not our soft magic of streamlet or hill, oh no, it was something more exquisite still. Oh no, it was something more exquisite still. Was the friends, the beloved of my bosom were near, who made every dear scene of enchantment more dear, and who felt that the best charms of nature improve when we see them reflected from looks that we love, when we see them reflected from looks that we love.
A few years ago, I had to have an MRI. And here's a poem I wrote afterwards. It's in 3 parts. The day before the scan, when I went fishing. A description of my thoughts, listening to the machine sounds. And then the day afterwards, when I attended a funeral. And again my imagination ran a bit wild. The centenary of the First World War was in the news then. Hence the references to that war. By the way, the scan results were fine. As my children said, Dad had a brain scan and they found nothing. Brain scan. The evening before, I went fishing with my son and his. Because it was years since I had fished, and then in mountain streams, I was shocked by the stillness of the canal, the lack of water sounds, the perfect reflections of trees, reeds and bridges. Swallows doubled as they swooped and fed. The one small perch I caught was an embarrassment. I felt guilty at my clumsy attempts to set him free of the barbed hook which drew my blood before I put him back in the water, hoping he was still alive. On the day, I imagined myself a tube-loaded torpedo, terrified by the whir and spin of hidden mechanisms, either calculating distance to targets or stealing stored thoughts for broadcasting. I dreamed of chainsaws, power drills and food mixers, changing natural materials to neat, useful products, firewood, furniture, fruitcakes. The morning afterwards, I attended a funeral. Early as usual, I conversed with a neighbour in the sunshine, waiting for the hearse. 11 weeks between diagnosis and death, she said. Inside, the celebrant told the usual tale of service. Family holidays, children abroad, early retirement, plans for travel, golf, relaxation. Well earned, upset. The willow coffin made my mind wander, and I imagined the church as a large hangar, the congregation mesmerised by a flimsy biplane, discussing the progress of the war, the slaughter in the trenches, and the receding prospect of peace.
Have a break. Have a Kit Kat.
Dia is Murray Goler a Gwyn Ushla. You're all very welcome. And today I'm going to chat in the first instance and tell you a little funny story. Well, not funny really, but it's amusing. And it is sparked off by the sad event. It is sparked off by the recent death of my old friend George Kelly. George, that's George now. He passed away the other day. God rest his soul. Predeceased by his 2 brothers, Frank and Sonny. God rest them all. And they were all 3 were great trim people, great community men, very talented, could do anything with their hands. And they were big into the GAA. And they were members who were born and raised on New Hargard Road in Trim, which is a few hundred yards from the GAA grounds. Now today I'm making a brief trip back to my summer home in the South Sea Islands, as you will notice. So I think I'll put on my hat to keep the sun off my head. So now to the story. One of the Kelly girls, one of George's daughters, Cora, told me about this funny incident that involves me and about which I had totally forgotten. But it's a funny incident that involves both her late dad and myself. George and I were at national school together, he being maybe 1 year ahead of me or so. And we didn't meet very often in adult life, but you know, we were friendly enough to share greetings and to have a little chat if the occasion arose. And the last time we met in these kind of circumstances, casual circumstances, was on a Sunday morning coming out from Mass in St. Joseph's. Probably was it 10 or 10:30 Mass, I can't remember now. But anyway, George and Kathleen, as far as I know, went to that Mass every Sunday. It's the one that suited them best. And I was there because it could have been the month's memory Mass or something from maybe Frank, the brother. That could be the occasion. But a few years ago anyway, and we were coming out, and George said hello or how are you or something like that, and we stopped in each other's tracks, and we had the following conversation, more or less. Now I have to interject here to say that in that time, 5 or 6 years ago, there was locally a local weekly magazine called Focus on Trim. This is a magazine to which I contributed something, usually every week. And they always put my name to anything that I ever wrote in that sense. So apparently I was amused by the chat we had at the time. And I wrote about it in Focus. And George Kelly and his family were quite amused by the conversation, to such an extent that they never threw away the sheet from the magazine Focus. In fact, they copied it and circulated it around themselves. So because they did that, I'm taking it upon myself to share it with you publicly as a funny incident. So I will glance at my own letter, lest I forget some of the details. George said to me, "Matt, do you remember Brother O'Mahony?" And I said, "Of course I remember him." And George said, "Do you remember the day that he was picking singers for the school choir and asked you and made you the captain?" I said, "I don't remember that. I don't remember that." "Well," said George, "I remember it, because you didn't pick me. You didn't pick me for your choir, because you knew I hadn't a note in my head." And that gave me a bit of a giggle. But he says, "I got my own back. About a week later, I was made the captain of the football team, and I deliberately didn't pick you." So that was how he got his own back. So that was a very amusing little tale to tell, but there has to be a moral there somewhere. What I take from that is, number one, Brother O'Mahony was very astute, because George Kelly went on to be a big GAA man and played in Croke Park and played both hurling and football at county level betimes. And I never got very far up the ladder of singing, but it got me on a little bit. I sang in America in concerts a few times, and quite a few times. And so I had, I did my own little bit in that sense. So what can we take from them? Well, the moral of the story is, don't let your hurt get you down too much, because if you live long enough, what hurt you 80 years ago will make you laugh sometime in your life. And that's that end of the story. But the other end of the story is that to talk about Trim, George worked in J&D Smith and Company. Now, that J&D Smith was in Market Street, and it is the building that is now Choice. And J&D Smith's was employing something up to 100 people, I would say, in its prime, because it was lots of things to lots of people. It was the grocery shop, it was a bakery, it was a bar, it was a wholesalers, it had a mineral water company, were whiskey blend bonders, fuel yard, undertakers, where, as far as I can remember, Wally Stenson was one of the ones that used to make coffins up in the loft. And of course they had an office stand employing more people. And at 1 o'clock every day, the whistle would blow, and about 100 people would get on their bicycles, cycle out the gate into Market Street, and cycle home to their lunch. And in George's case, cycled up Emmett Street to New Haggard Road, where he lived, for his lunch. That was Trim then. So it's just a nice little humorous thought for the day, and I hope you enjoyed the little scale.
Thank you, Matt, for those memories. We'll end this week with another tune from Vladimir, from the Trim Tourism Network Classical Christmas Evening in Trim in December 2018. And this tune is the well-known Blue Danube. So if you feel like waltzing, this is your chance. Until we see you all again next week, take care. God bless.